AMS is a premier substance use disorder treatment facility in Rehoboth Beach, Delaware. AMS specializes in outpatient counseling services for individuals struggling with substance use disorders. Evidence based, client centered care is their main focus. AMS offers over 30 different group therapy options a month, individualized counseling sessions, and the option of receiving medication assistance with methadone, Suboxone, Subutex, and Vivitrol. Your treatment is in your hands. AMS currently accepts Delaware and Maryland Medicaid, Medicare, and VA benefits. For help, call 302 227 1320 and schedule your intake appointment today. All right, good morning and welcome back. This is the I Am Sorry About Last Night podcast. My name is Tom, part of the Social Podcast Network, www.socialpodcastnetwork.com. Check it out, all local folks doing local podcasts. Yeah, check it out. So I thought today I would try to, I shared a little bit the other day about the traditions, and I'm going to see if I can maybe talk about the traditions a little bit. I know early on coming into the program, I hated the 12. Oh no, not the 22. Oh, the 12 traditions. Here we go. Because when I first came into the program, there was a lot of different kinds of meetings, and one of the meetings was a tradition meeting, and I would go, but at some point you're like, yeah, there's no drama, right, in the traditions. It's really pretty cut and dry. So I used to find it kind of as a boring meeting, but there was a guy by the name of Harry W. And that's funny, Harry W. And he was a big, and still is, I think. I think Harry's still alive. If you're around this area, you probably know Harry. But he was a big proponent of the 12 traditions. But they're not glamorous. They're not, there's no drama in the traditions, so it's tough to get everybody on board. But the fact is, without the traditions, and see, and I'm not saying this is an official thing, but I always say that for instance, Alcoholics Anonymous, instead of saying, hey, these are the 12 rules, they call them traditions, because nobody likes following rules. Especially when you're coming into a program being like, hey, welcome, come on in, there's 12 rules, okay? So they call them traditions, or the promises. I always say the 12 promises are the 12 things that I probably need to work on the most. But they're not going to be like, hey, man, here's 12 things you need to work on the most. So they call it the 12 promises and the 12 traditions. And I'm going to read them because you know what? They're important. And, I think and so this is the 12 traditions of Alcoholics Anonymous short form. Number 1, our common welfare should come first. Personal recovery depends upon AA unity. For our group purpose, there is but one ultimate authority, a loving God as he may express himself in our group conscience. Our leaders are but trusted servants, they do not govern. The only requirement for AA membership is a desire to stop drinking. That's important. That is very important. You're not there to make the coffee. You're not there to greet. Your only reason you're there because you have a desire to stop drinking. You're in. That's just that. Number 4, each group should be autonomous except in matters affecting other groups or AA as a whole. Anonymous, autonomous means we shouldn't be out there flying the AA flag. Look at us. Affecting other groups or AA as a whole. Each group has but one primary purpose, to carry its message to alcoholics who still suffer. That's right. Each group has but one primary purpose, to carry its message to the alcoholic who still suffers. That's right. That's it. We're not there to reform, correct, imply rules. We're only there for one thing, to carry its message to the alcoholic who still suffers. Number 6, An AA group ought never endorse, finance, or lend the AA name to any related facility or outside enterprise, lest problems of money, property, and prestige divert us from our primary purpose. Yeah. Endorse, finance, or lend the AA name to any related facility or outside enterprise. I guess you can't say like this is a AA recovery building. I guess the recovery, it has to be recovery, but the reality is we use AA to get sober, but you can't name it the AA building, I guess. Every AA group ought to be fully self-supporting, declining outside contributions. That's why we take, that's why we pass the basket. You know? Less, I know in my life, when I'm taking care of myself, my life's a lot better. Back in the day when my dad had to help me, then I had to listen to him. Kind of funny. 8. Alcoholics Anonymous should remain forever non-professional, but our service centers may employ special workers. Yes. AA as such ought never be organized, but we may create service boards or committees directly responsible to those they serve. Number 10, Alcoholics Anonymous has no opinion on outside issues. That's right. We have no opinion on outside issues. Hence, the AA name ought never be drawn into public controversy. That's right. Our public relations policy is based on attraction rather than promotion. Attraction rather than promotion, meaning I like what you guys are doing. Instead of I like what I read about what you guys are doing, right? We need always maintain personal anonymity at the level of press, radio, and films. Yeah, so there's probably a bunch of people right now rolling their eyes. They're probably, I don't know if I should even read this on this podcast, but I guess the point of reading it is to show that there are traditions, and they're not rules. This is traditionally what we've been doing. And, it's important. I don't think the traditions are talked about enough. Neither did Harry W. When you go to a meeting and there's a cuss can, it's not in the traditions. It's enough to annoy people. Our public relations policy is based on attraction rather than promotion. We need to always maintain personal anonymity at the level of press, radio, and films. Anonymity is a spiritual foundation of all our traditions, ever reminding us to place principles before personalities. Cuss cans are personalities. Bagel meetings are personalities. Ego. Pillow meetings, candle meetings, night meetings, morning meetings, beach meetings, everything. If there's something before the word meeting, that's probably a personality. In the beginning, I think a lot of men had traditionally went to AA. The men drank and the women stayed home, and so that's where they created, Al-Anon, supposedly for the mothers or for the wives that were sitting in the cars waiting for their husbands who were sitting in meetings. But I think we'd all figure out later or at the same time, I don't even know, but women drank too, right? So then they came up with women's meetings. I mean, if you are having a hang up about the style of meeting, isn't that kind of part of the problem? I mean, isn't that the part of the problem that we really need to work on? Like, shouldn't we be at a place where we say, listen, whatever, I just need the meeting. I just need to remind myself that I'm an alcoholic. I mean, actually, if you really have a hang up about a meeting, it almost seems like it would be more important to really go to that meeting. I remember early, if you have an issue with somebody, go sit next to them. Right? If everything you have an issue with or everything that goes on in your world, if there's an issue, you need to do that. You need to tackle it head on. But to avoid out of fear or ego, I think is defeating the purpose really of the meetings. I've said this before, and don't hold me to it, but I've always felt like if a meetings should kind of suck. Meetings should be a reminder. Meetings shouldn't be just this thing you're looking forward to. If the meeting is better than anything that you've done all day, you've really just gone to a social event. You've pleased you. And I'm not saying don't go to a meeting, go. But if you have issues, definitely go. That's when you should really go. Walking through the fire. It's like, are you happy? Yes, I'm doing something wrong.
Dope shit like that, Germ. Oh, hi. Welcome back to Kids. Follow your dreams. Yeah. Wanna get a mansion, a jacuzzi, a theater to watch my movies, couple whips and lots of fancy things. The kids they call the Goonies. I see the future, crystal ball, mirror hanging on the wall. Who the flyest white boy of the mall? Got your girlfriend screening all the calls. She bubbling, we fucking and you cuddling. Like baby, where the fuck you been? Don't wanna tell you she in love with him. So we ain't saying nothing. You could probably tell she bluffing, cause she kissed you with the mouth. She gave me head with my concussion. Yeah, she blushing, all red. Wanna rush and go to bed. You interrogate that bitch like you the fed. So she says she in love with a rock star. Wanna smoke my weed, so she asked me where the tops are. Top drawer. Yeah. Just some motherfucking kids. Make money, fuck bitches. Yeah, Pittsburgh. Hey, John, hey, these hoes is drunk. Wanna come and smoke this blunt? Then let me take them home and do anything I want. I said, baby, I can ride ya. Just let me get inside ya. I can take you higher if you hit this vaporizer. I got that dope dick, I be a supplier. You grabbing on my sheets and hitting notes like you Mariah. Obsessed with me, undress a freak on ecstasy. I'm out and then she texting me like, what you doing next week?
Hear me now, I'm down on knees and praying, though my faith is weak. Without you, so please, baby, please give us a chance. Make amends and I will stand up to the end. A million times, a trillion times.
Yep. Mac Miller. He's dead. Overdosed. I feel like a lot of the bands I play on this podcast have died. It's unfortunate. I wonder what it was. I wonder what hung up Mac Miller. I haven't looked into his story. I'm sure he was struggling. I mean, was he struggling to get sober, or was he struggling to appear like he wants to get sober? I've been there. I remember how this program would not work for me, or a program. It wouldn't work for me. The program don't work. I just did not want to get sober. That's okay. But don't say the program doesn't work. Program is the program. It's just a bunch of words. It's like going to a gym and not lifting. It's like going for a run and not running. It's not working. I'm not seeing any results. It's like going on a diet and eating garbage. It's what we want and really how much really we want to put into it. And when I came into a program early on, I didn't want to get sober. Hell no. I don't know if I've ever, honestly, if I'm going to be straight up honest, I don't think I've ever wanted to get sober. I say right now, I'd love to use if it didn't fuck up everything. If it wouldn't wreck my career, my family, my life with my children and wife, my relationship with my parents. If it would, being able to own a small business, all that wonderful stuff. If none of that was affected, I'd probably still like to get high, get drunk. But all that gets wrecked. So I'm compromising in the end. I'm making a compromise. I'm taking an honest look at it. I think a lot of people I remember when I first got sober, I went on a date. Went to this, I don't know, it was in the summer. We were down at this restaurant. And I remember I had a sip of, I was drinking a virgin something, right? And I took a drink of something, and it was absolutely not virgin. And I remember I swallowed this big mouthful. It must have been rum or vodka or something. And I just felt so bad. I felt so bad. But part of me was like, God, I like that. Oops, still like it. And I would actually go back and drink after that incident. But I remember calling my sponsor and going, I think I just swallowed alcohol. Thought I was going to burst into flames. And he's like, hey, don't worry about it. Shit happens. Just as long as you don't do it again. And it was an honest mistake. I'll never, I was mortified. Because I was still under the assumption that I wanted to be sober. And I wanted to be free from the drama of all of the drugs and alcohol that I was doing. I definitely wanted that. I was very afraid. But when all that shit fades away and that gray cloud shows back up, I was like, God, I miss drinking. And it would take me, drinking and whatever else the hell I did, and then finally to come to the conclusion that just doesn't work for you. If you like it still and you miss it, that's fine. But I remember when I inside missed it and still liked it, and when I took that drink and I still liked it, I didn't want to say that to my sponsor. I didn't want to admit that because that meant I didn't want to be sober. It was a fraud, right? No, it's not. I think it's a real honest... it's like being in a relationship that you break up with. There's parts of the relationship you still miss. You'll always miss it, right? That's honest. But if you're in a new relationship and the person asks you, do you miss her? Or do you miss him? Or whatever it is. And you're like, no, hell no. That's not honest. One, I don't know if we can handle it. And two, I don't know if our partner could handle the truth. Because when I finally said, I honestly still like getting drunk and I miss it, but I know through all the attempts and practice and outcomes that I know that it just does not work for me. I hadn't really, I probably started, I know that I probably started cigarettes early. We probably started smoking. I started becoming under the influence at a very early age. I went from like a little kid to basically getting drunk and high. So I had no real understanding of what life was like being sober. So I spent a big portion of my first years of sobriety like in depression, then I couldn't be drunk anymore. Drinking, doing all that, and finally coming out on the other side, and then I started trying to live a life of sobriety, which is just basically not being drunk. And I think that's where we all become kind of equal, right? So I'm out of the shit. I'm back out on the field with the rest of the players. I had to go through the shit a bit, but then we were back on the field and we start dealing with the game. And that's where the program, for me, has helped me understand the game. Because the game can fucking stress you out. The game can send you back into shit. And that's what the program is about. And that's what the traditions are about. Let's keep the game the same. We don't need versions of, the NFL. The NFL has its traditions, rules, Can you imagine if we watched Sunday football and then be like, oh, we're going to watch the Cowboys and the Washington football team? These guys, they like to play by different traditions. And you're like, wait a minute, you can't do that. Can you imagine if you could hold, right? Just for the Dallas and Washington football team game. Not any other game. But in this game, you're allowed to hold. You'd go out of your mind, right? You go crazy. I can't believe they're letting them hold. This bullshit in their rules and their traditions. The tradition of the NFL. No. They don't switch. Every game isn't slightly different. We try. In the end, it comes down to the refs, and you try to find a consistent refereeing group, right? For the most part, I think the refs are pretty consistent through the NFL, but we have those games, right? There's a game where, especially as we get closer to the Super Bowl, like those last playoff games, there wasn't a lot of flags being thrown. I think they were just kind of letting them play, right? But when they play another game and those refs are the same refs and they start throwing flags, they're like, they get pissed off. You weren't throwing those flags before, now you're throwing them. So consistent. People like consistency. I remember when I worked at Taco Bell. And I was like, 20, 21. And every once in a while, you build like relationships from the line. You're at the line, you see these guys, your friends, people come up in order, and you're like, okay. And, if you see people that or you've built this relationship, a visual eye to eye from the line relationship, and sometimes you make a bigger burrito, a couple pumps of sour cream. But my manager's like, Tom, listen. She goes, I get it. I appreciate that. People, hooking up people. But the problem is that if they come back and they don't get the same burrito, and it's back to like the regular burrito, they're not going to be happy. And they may not come back to Taco Bell. And then we've lost the client. So know this. Do whatever you do, but do it consistently the way it's supposed to be done. That way people get used to consistency. The consistency of however the standard is that you're doing it. And you don't lose people like that. And it is true. Because I don't go back to that meeting now because of the cuss can. And if they open the meeting, I think I might have said this the other day. If they open the meetings up, I definitely would go back. I'd have to work it out. But this is the possibilities that occur when you start making your own rules. And there's danger of losing people because of your personality. And you have to be careful about that. Whether it's a meeting or eating out, we want. And when we don't get, we get disappointed. And then we have a hissy fit. We used to go to this restaurant, Lefty's, me and my wife, and we'd go have this. They used to serve this great little steak, little potato. I mean, it was reasonable, maybe like $19 or something. Get a vegetable. We'd go there every Friday night. My wife likes to eat steak on Fridays. Me too. As long as I can afford it and everything. We enjoy that. It was our thing. And then one day we'd go and they'd be like, we ran out of that steak. We're going to give you a pork chop. I'm like, fuck that. We're here for steak. All of a sudden we're not getting our way. Loud talk starts. Not really. I'm just kind of saying that. But it was, it's a disappointment. You're like, shit. And then we'd go back. All right. Then we'd go back and then they changed the steak. It's a different steak. Now they're seasoning it differently. And they were just kind of figuring it out. So every time we'd come back, it'd be a different steak, a different kind of seasoning, onions on top, whatever it was. And now we're like, oh. And you think as a person, you're like, yeah, listen, we're showing out all this variety. We're keeping it different, keeping mixed, changing it up. But as for us, it was like no good. We liked the consistency of that simple little steak and potato and vegetable that we were getting every Friday. And then they started changing it. and it was inconsistent, and we haven't been back. Thank God, because honestly, we used to drop probably $100 at Lefty's on Friday. Between the food and the games. And, go try Lefty's. I mean, they have the axe throwing now. It's a great restaurant. It just was too inconsistent for us at the time, and then the next thing you know, we stopped going. And we have not been back, and it's probably been 3 years. That's what you have to be careful for. That's why we have traditions, They say, you want to start a new meeting? Here's the traditions. Have fun. But isn't that weird? I know for me that the more I get, the longer I'm sober, the longer I'm doing good, right? I become a little bit more special, unique. When did I need to start having opinions about shit? Is that, I guess, just human nature, I suppose. Cuss cans, here's, maybe we start off with the one meeting, and then you have somebody that doesn't like something about the meeting, and they start another meeting, and then it's almost like spotlighted that they will not be doing what the other meeting was doing. Ha! So what is this? So they were all going to a meeting, and people were cussing. So they said, that's it, I'm starting another meeting, and this will not have any cussing, and if you cuss, you will pay money. It does not. I repeat, does not say that in the traditions. That's an issue. But everybody's like, oh, whatever, what do I care? I'm sober. I shouldn't care. I have no opinion on these things, right? So you're fucking damned if you do and you're damned if you don't. But, people need to self-police themselves and say, listen, what this cuss can is doing. And I keep using the cuss can as an example because for some reason that cuss can really annoyed me. But like I said, there's bagel meetings. I remember the bagel meetings. The bagel meeting, it's a great idea, Someone stop by, Surf Bagel, pick up a bunch of bagels. And we'll serve bagels. It's an 8 o'clock meeting. Not a lot of people go. Next thing you know, there's a bunch of people going because there's bagels. And now you're running out of bagels. So what? Do you need to have enough bagels for the whole meeting? So then they started cutting the bagels in half. Then you had cream cheese, and all of a sudden now you got a strawberry. Now we're having multiple varieties of cream cheese flavors. And now it becomes a thing. You've opened the door for problems. And I think that I think that meeting. Well, I don't know. There's no meetings right now, but I think that meeting's still alive. And I think they figured it out. They've managed it, but that's what it becomes, something to manage. Now you're managing this meeting, and it really is supposed to be a place. Well, and that's the other thing. You start. Oh, so now it's a big group of people, and now really what we're having is breakfast. And I can say that early on in the program, when I was getting sober, I definitely needed that.